In this lesson, we're gonna be talking about why we're choosing to ignore perspective and how this exactly looks like. I will be showing you some examples of some artists that ignore perspective, and by the end of the lesson, you will have understood what I mean by zero perspective. By ignoring perspective, you will be able to actually focus on other things that make the painting interesting, like the composition and the color choice. You will not feel the need to create a perfect sketch in order to get started, so the flow will be much easier, and you will see that you actually do not need to depict reality 100% in order to create an interesting drawing, and it will really let your style and your own vision of the world flow into the painting. So here are some examples of what I mean by a zero perspective illustration. We have, for example, Mirabel Lee. She creates still lifes that are kind of flat lays, you know, like when you take your phone and you take a picture from above. This automatically eliminates the perspective out of the objects. Also, when you look at an object like from right in the front, it just looks like a shape, so it has no perspective. Then we have Simun. He's a Korean artist that creates a series of objects, ordinary objects that you would normally not see in a still life. So if you have a subject that is very interesting, this automatically makes your painting also very interesting and out of the ordinary. Then Claire Macbeth, she actually depicts old masters and reinterprets them in her own style. So if you feel like you're stuck, you can always look at Matisse or any of these old masters that did still lives and reinterpret them in your own style. This will also allow you to get to know what you like and how you like to paint. I would also like to recommend you an Instagram that's called Still Life, Still Here. They post a reference picture every month, and many artists reinterpret it in their own style, and actually it's a good source of inspiration, so if you would like to check it out, feel free to do so. As you can see, it is not very hard to create a still life with zero perspective, and throughout this class we will play and challenge different design principles, such as asymmetry versus symmetry. Asymmetry is found in nature very often. Everything organic is kind of asymmetric. We are asymmetric, and it will help you create focal points throughout your drawing by drawing attention to one point or another. Symmetry is comely, is well balanced, is nice to look at. It can also be interesting, but I do recommend using asymmetrical compositions in combination with symmetry. Like for example, in this example of Léa Maupetit, there you see a very symmetrical vase with these different cherries that are in an odd number and a very asymmetrical background. Also, the placement of the whole still life is kind of asymmetrical and it gives interest to the piece. Another design principle you can challenge is scale. Scale is what makes the objects seem further or closer from each other. Also, it's very fun to play with something that's supposed to be very small, make it very big, or something that's big, make it very small. It can make your illustration quite unique and quite fantastical. In this example of Rebecca Green, we see different cups placed in different positions in regards to each other. And as you can see, it gives the painting depth, even though it's completely flat. Another design principle would be, for example, the margins. The way you frame your painting is very important. Do you leave a lot of white around it? Do you incorporate the margin, the whites of the margin into your painting? Do you play with white space? However you do it, it will have an impact on the final painting. Here in this example of Senji Funabashi, we see how you can somehow recognize that the blue is the background, the green is the plane, and how the things are placed together. How would this painting, however, look with the margin? It would look totally different. Another design principle that you can use is, for example, the visual hierarchy. You want to create a visual hierarchy in your painting, and you can do it, for example, with the use of color. Playing with hue, saturation, light and darkness, it will make your composition pop. Using colors that work well together will create a balanced composition, and using unexpected colors will make it more interesting. In this example by Matisse with the pomegranate, we see how all our attention focus on this one piece. So as you see, all of these design principles are ready for you to use and to challenge. And now I'm going to give you some tips that will really, from the get-go, help you create a more flat still life. Some of the most important tips in order to make your illustrations seem flat are, for example, using the same color for the whole background. This means the floor and the walls will have the same color, like in this example of Matisse. And you can see it creates a very flat effect, and it definitely erases all signs of perspective. Another tip would be, for example, to play with the scale and the relationship of the objects to each other, like we saw before in the Rebecca Green example. This will help you to create depth when there's none, because we will be painting the objects without perspective. Also, treating the objects as a collage, like Picasso did, could help you really rid everything of perspective and just be very graphic and bold and paste the objects on top of each other. So feel free to cut things out and try out with this collage technique if you feel like it. Another very important tip is to really think about the margins, the framing, and the blank space in your drawing. Leaving things out wide will really help you to create a very graphic and bold effect. And lastly, but not least important, is simplification. By simplifying the shape and the details of the objects, you will really read the object of reality and focus the attention of the viewer into what's really important. You will focus on composition and color, which are very important for a painting, and you will not have to worry about really just copying one-on-one everything that's around you. So forget about reality and just reinterpret what you see. So get ready for the next steps. We're actually going to start arranging, choosing, and photographing our elements for our still life. Super exciting! Let's get to it!